This is Story Recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a horror, mystery, and thriller film called The Ward. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. The year is 1966, and a dark and ominous atmosphere fills the North Bend Psychiatric Hospital. Steps are heard in a hallway, and it stops when it reaches Tammy's room. Tammy is fearful of the entity outside. The unseen entity passes through her door, strangles, and kills Tammy. The following day, a woman named Kristen is hiding in the woods. After running, she finds herself near a farmhouse. With matches, she sets fire to the curtains of the house. The fire spreads and burns down the home. The police see the burning house and Kristen, who just sits there and watches the flames. Kristen arrives at a mental hospital in an ambulance. The hospital staff takes pictures of her bruises and burns and gives her a fresh set of clothes. Roy, a nurse, accompanies Kristen to the ward, a restricted area, and Kristen's new home, while Nurse Lund takes Kristen to her new room. Other patients observe her. Lund erases the name on the blackboard of Tammy's room. Kristen makes herself feel at home and lies down to get some rest. Kristen's blanket suddenly gets pulled off her. She wakes up and finds it under her bed. There, she also finds trinkets with letters engraved on them. Morning arrives, and a therapist, Dr. Gerald Stringer, sees Kristen sleeping on the floor. Lund comes in and greets her good morning. She hands Kristen pills for her to take. Instead, she steps on them. In the common area, all the patients have their eyes on the new girl. One of them is Zoe, who acts like a child. Another is Emily. She's the first to approach Kristen. She asks if Kristen is here to save them from the ghost. Iris interrupts them and requests for Emily to stop scaring Kristen. She then introduces herself, and another girl, Sarah, quickly makes herself known as the mean girl of the group. Roy then calls Kristen for her session with Stringer. In Stringer's office, Stringer asks Kristen if she remembers what happened yesterday. Kristen only remembers the fire. Stringer shows her a picture of her palm, where the farmhouse's address was written on. Kristen doesn't remember how she got the address and why she burned the house. Stringer urges her to recall, and a teary-eyed Kristen acts aggressively towards his efforts to help. She then points toward a one-way mirror, and behind it is a camera recording them. While he's distracted, Kristen steals a sharp object from his desk. Later, Roy makes sure Kristen drinks her pills. As soon as he leaves, she grabs her tool and picks her door lock. Kristen heads to the main door. As she attempts to open it, Roy restrains her. He then brings her back to her room. In the middle of the night, steps are heard in the hallway once again. Kristen sees a disfigured woman outside her room, but she quickly disappears. The following day, Roy gives Kristen a fresh set of clothes. She joins the other patients in the common area. Emily begins singing unpleasantly, and this infuriates Sarah. As she winds up a slap, Iris stops her. Out in the yard, Iris invites Kristen to be her model. She accepts, and Iris begins drawing her. Inside is a couple watching them. Emily joins them and informs Kristen that the couple always looks sad whenever they visit. Iris shares that Stringer is treating them with an experimental therapy. Kristen tells them about the female figure she saw last night. However, they neither deny nor confirm what Kristen saw. The next day, everyone is taking a shower at the same time. The others finish earlier, leaving Kristen alone. While she showers, the disfigured woman grabs her neck. Lund hears her screams and runs to her aid. In the nurse's office, a traumatized Kristen tells Lund that she saw a disfigured woman. Lund doesn't seem to believe her, and she administers a drug to knock Kristen out. Kristen wakes up in another room, all tied up. Lund prepares her for electroshock therapy. Since the medication isn't working, Stringer is forced to resort to this method. They fry Kristen's brain, and the nurse carry her back to her cell. Emily wakes Kristen up, and they all eat their breakfast except for Kristen. After eating, they gather in the common area with Stringer. Emily, looking like the Joker, asks what they did to Kristen. Stringer lies about the electroshock procedure. The situation reminds Emily of Tammy, who disappeared and never came back. Iris shares that Tammy was the last who left the ward, unaware that she's dead. Stringer then stops their conversation. After the session, Emily tries to cheer Kristen up. Iris comes in to announce that she'll have her final session with Stringer. Stringer didn't explicitly say he was going to release Iris, but Iris believes she's cured. During Iris's session, Stringer looks through her drawings. A drawing of a dark figure in the hallway catches his attention. Because of this, Stringer won't be releasing Iris yet. He'll try a different approach this session. He reveals a metronome and instructs Iris to focus on the rhythm. Then, Stringer tells her to imagine her home. Iris then falls asleep. After the session, Stringer instructs the nurse to fetch the sleeping Iris. However, she's nowhere to be found. Iris wakes up restrained to a stretcher. She looks up to see who's pushing her, and she screams in fear. The disfigured woman removes Iris's glasses and stabs her in the eye. Kristen wakes up next to Zoe, who feels uneasy because Iris still hasn't returned. Kristen asks Lund where Iris is, but she ignores her and orders them to sleep. At breakfast, Iris is still missing, and Emily believes that she was released. Later, Kristen enters Iris's cell and sees her bed folded up with her sketchbook left behind. Since Iris's sketchbook is still in her room, Kristen doesn't believe she was released. She asks Lund where Iris is, but Lund ignores her. In her room, Kristen browses through Iris's sketchbook. She sees a drawing of a woman named Alice. On the next page, she sees the same disfigured woman who choked her. On the upper right corner is the name Alice Hudson. There, Kristen realizes the trinkets she found on her first night spell out Alice. During a therapy session, Kristen questions Stringer about Alice. She then asks where Iris, Tammy, and the other girls that were treated before her. Stringer remains silent. Kristen pleads for him to answer, but Stringer encourages her to find the answers on her own. In the common area, Kristen shouts at the group to tell her who Alice is. Their faces are filled with guilt. Finally, Emily tells her that Alice was a patient who got released. Kristen announces her plan to escape and find Iris, but Zoe tells her that someone won't let them leave. Night arrives, and Kristen modifies Emily's door so that it can be opened from the outside. She promises to get Emily after lights out, and then they'll look for Iris. Later, Kristen drinks her pills and opens her mouth for Lund to check. The nurse leaves, and Kristen reveals that the pills are still in her hand. Roy does his nightly check, missing Kristen, who has found her way into Emily's room. The two exit the room, and they make their way to the bathroom. There's a conveniently placed vent in one of the stalls, and they enter it. After some crawling, they find themselves in another part of the hospital. At the same time, Lund sees that their doors are open. Kristen and Emily go down a couple more floors into the basement area. They reach the morgue, and Emily immediately plays with some scalpels. Suddenly, they hear someone approaching. Emily hides under a desk while Kristen hides in a dark room. While the nurses inspect the place, a hand appears behind Kristen. The coast is clear, and Kristen calls Emily, but she's not responding. A drawer begins moving, and Kristen opens it. A disfigured hand surprises her. Kristen leaves the morgue and returns upstairs. As she hears the front door, she hears someone calling the name Alice. As Kristen turns, the ghost of Alice appears before her, and this disorientates her. She's knocked out, and the last person she sees is Roy. The following day, Kristen wakes up on the floor again. Emily talks to her, saying that she was caught last night. Kristen believes Iris is gone for good, and if they don't escape now, they'll suffer the same fate. In the common area, Sarah questions Kristen about what happened last night. Kristen said they didn't find Iris, and Sarah blames their failure on Emily. Sarah leaves, feeling prouder than ever. She looks in her pocket mirror and sees the ghost of Alice behind her. Sarah runs to hide in another room. As she looks out the door, Alice grabs her from behind. She constricts Sarah's breathing until she passes out. Sarah wakes up, restrained to an operating table. Beside her is Alice, preparing an electrotherapy device. Sarah pleads for her to stop, but she feels no remorse. Alice overloads the device and fries Sarah's brain. Nerves in her face swell up, and blood rushes out of her mouth. The flickering lights in the common area make Kristen realize that Sarah is gone. With Sarah missing, they know they're next. Zoe can't help but fall to her knees and cry. Kristen sees that Zoe's toy has Alice's initials written on it. Zoe reveals that Sarah and the other girls did something to Alice. Zoe opens up about Alice and how she often hurt them all. Tammy came up with the idea to get rid of Alice. Zoe lured Alice into Tammy's room where everyone was waiting to gang up on her. They murdered her together, and now Alice is back for revenge. Kristen still doesn't understand why Alice is also after her. Emily separates from the group, and they follow soon after. With escape while she hid, Emily plans to kill herself, but before she does, Alice appears behind Emily and slits her throat. Zoe grows hysterical at the sight of Emily bleeding out. Only the two of them are left, and Kristen has a plan to save them. Kristen pretends to take Zoe as a hostage. She orders Lund to open the door, and she follows. Another nurse appears, and they let them pass. They arrive before the elevator, but when it opens, Roy is inside. He disarms Kristen and pins her to the wall. Lund plans to sedate Kristen, but Stringer stops her. He still believes he can cure Kristen. He just needs more time. While they're arguing, Kristen breaks free. Stringer holds her still, while Lund drugs her. Kristen loses consciousness, and the nurses drag her to her room. Kristen is now in a straitjacket. Lund force feeds her some pills, and they leave her for the night. Kristen sees the springs of her bed frame, and she uses them to break free. She then forces herself to vomit. Later that night, Lund sees that Kristen is missing. She enters the room, and Kristen hides in the corner. With a single hit on the back, Lund gets knocked out. Kristen plans to escape once again. This time, she makes sure to knock Roy out. She gets Zoe, and they head straight to the main door. Roy regains consciousness, but isn't able to catch up in time. The elevator door closes, so Roy takes the stairs. They reach the ground floor, and waiting for them is Roy. They return to the elevator to head back up. They make their way through the hallway, hitting nurses along their way. The ghost of Alice appears before them, so they take the stairs and head into the basement area. They find a dumbwaiter, and Zoe gets in. In the lift, Alice appears behind Zoe, while a nurse sees Kristen. Luckily, they barricaded the gate, giving Kristen time to climb into the dumbwaiter. In another room, Zoe is nowhere to be found. Kristen sees a trail of blood, and she follows it right to Alice. She runs to an office and dials the telephone. She turns and swings the phone, but Alice has disappeared. After looking down the hallway, Alice is seen behind Kristen. She pulls her to the floor and throws her all over the place. Kristen manages to get her hands on a fire axe, which she buries in Alice's chest. Kristen leaves her to bleed out. In Stringer's office, Kristen sees Alice's file. Stringer sneaks up behind her and asks what she's doing. With a glass shard, Kristen forces Stringer to talk. Finally, he tells her the truth. Kristen is Alice, and Stringer hands her a newspaper article. When she was young, Alice was abducted and chained in an abandoned farmhouse for 2 months. The same farmhouse Kristen burned down. Alice developed multiple personalities to act as a coping mechanism. All of the patients were Alice's personalities, and they all shared the trauma and pain she suffered. But the personalities grew unpredictable and dominant. They overwhelmed and murdered Alice's real personality. In 7 years, they have almost cured her, but then a new personality appeared, Kristen. Kristen was a wild card, and Alice created her to protect her personalities. But in the end, they were all destroyed just as Stringer planned, and Kristen is next. Alice appears behind for the final time and attacks Kristen. Then, they both jump out a window. After some time, the sad couple visits Stringer. They are Alice's parents, and Stringer gives them the good news that Alice is cured. Alice wakes up, and her parents become emotional as their daughter has finally returned. Roy brings Alice all her belongings and the bracelet that spells her name. Stringer asks if she finally remembers what happened to her. Alice does, and she never has to run away from her traumas again. She'll be discharged in 3 days, and her parents leave in the meantime. Days later, it's time to leave the ward, and Alice packs her belongings. As she opens her medicine cabinet, Kristen lunges at her.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.